When Pep Guardiola spoke after yet another frustrating result, his message was simple and revealing. He said the team is not taking their chances. That single sentence captures almost everything that has gone wrong with Manchester City's season so far. On paper, the control is still there. The possession numbers look familiar. The territory is still dominant. But the outcomes no longer match the performances, and that gap between control and results is where City's problems live. They have drawn games they should have won comfortably. They nearly threw away a 5-goal lead in a match that should have been over by halftime. They went 3-1 up against Leeds and still allowed the game to drift into danger. These are not isolated moments. They are patterns. And when patterns appear in a Guardiola team, they deserve closer examination. The most obvious place to start is the striker, because football games are ultimately decided in the penalty boxes. Erling Haaland remains one of the most feared forwards in world football, but this season has exposed a quieter truth behind the headlines. He has missed more chances in the Premier League this season than any other player. That does not mean he is suddenly a poor striker. It means the margin for error at Manchester City has disappeared. In previous seasons, City could miss 3 or 4 big chances and still win, because the next wave would come. Now, when Haaland misses early opportunities, the psychological tone of the match shifts. Opponents stay alive. Defenders grow in confidence. The game stretches. City's dominance becomes fragile rather than suffocating. Haaland's movement is still elite, but his finishing has been streaky and in a system that depends on efficiency rather than chaos. That inefficiency hurts more than it would elsewhere. Guardiola's system creates high-quality chances rather than high-volume shots. That is why missed big chances matter more than total shots taken. When Haaland fails to convert, City do not suddenly become more direct or aggressive. They continue to circulate the ball, hoping for the next perfect moment. Meanwhile, the opponent grows braver with every escape. But the striker is only part of the picture. Behind Haaland sits a midfield that has quietly become one of City's biggest tactical questions. And at the heart of it is Phil Foden. Foden is one of the most talented players England has produced in a generation. His close control, shooting, and instinct around the box are elite. However, using him as a central midfielder consistently exposes limitations that are not about talent, but about maturity and game management. Central midfield at Manchester City is not about flair. It is about control, positioning, and decision-making under pressure. When Foden plays in that role, he naturally wants to affect the game higher up the pitch. He drifts forward. He looks for final balls and shots. In doing so, he sometimes leaves structural gaps behind him. Those gaps are small, but at the highest level, small gaps are invitations. When City lose the ball in central areas, transitions become dangerous. Opponents do not need many chances. They only need space. Foden is learning, but learning in the middle of a title race is costly. In wide areas or advanced roles, his risk-taking is an asset. In central midfield, those same risks can destabilize a team's shape. City have looked more open this season not because they lack defenders, but because the spaces in front of the defense appear more often. This leads naturally to Guardiola himself. Pep is widely regarded as one of the greatest coaches in football history, but greatness does not make anyone immune to criticism. One recurring issue this season has been his loyalty to certain players regardless of form. Guardiola values trust and rhythm. He believes players play their way back into form through minutes, not bench time. That philosophy has brought him enormous success, but also carries risk. When players know they will start regardless of performance, internal competition softens. The edge that defines elite teams dulls slightly. In past City sides, rotation was ruthless. Poor performances were followed by changes. This season, some players have struggled yet continue to start, while others who could offer energy or urgency remain on the bench. Over time, that consistency of selection can become predictability. Opponents prepare for City, knowing who will play and how they will behave. Guardiola's system relies on precision. When execution drops but selection stays the same, the system looks rigid rather than flexible. City have not lost their identity, but they have lost some of their adaptability within matches. They stick to plan A even when the game demands plan B. Finally, there is the broader issue of recruitment. Since 2022, Manchester City have not significantly improved the squad through transfers, with a clear exception of Haaland. That is not to say the signings have been poor players. It is to say they have not raised the level of the team in the way previous additions did. In earlier cycles, each new arrival added a new dimension. Recently, additions have felt like maintenance rather than evolution. As rivals refresh and retool, City have largely stood still. The core of the team remains brilliant, but football punishes stagnation. Legs tire. Motivation fluctuates. Familiar patterns lose their surprise. Without fresh competition for places, intensity can drop almost invisibly until results expose it. When you put all of this together, Manchester City's poor form begins to make sense. It is not collapse. It is erosion. Missed chances that once did not matter now decide games. Midfield control that once felt automatic now requires constant adjustment. Tactical loyalty that once built trust now risks complacency. Recruitment that once refreshed the squad now feels conservative. City are still a very good team. They may still recover and compete at the highest level. But dominance in modern football is fragile. When efficiency drops even slightly, the margins disappear. Guardiola understands this better than anyone, which is why his comments about missed chances are so telling. They are not excuses. They are warnings.